All right.
We're taking all the best old school wisdom and blending it with the top new school methods to bring you the optimal coaching strategies. This is the 80-20 Baseball Podcast with Coach Bo.
Welcome, youth baseball community. Great to be here with all of you today. This week's episode will include a discussion about possible awards that you could give to your players at the end of every practice. This episode is also going to include an interesting comment by a player that was the Astros Minor League Player of the Year some time ago, about 20 years ago, but an interesting comment that I read in a baseball coaching magazine recently, and we'll get into that so we don't make the same mistakes that the baseball community, the coaching community has been making for a long time and still continues to make. And the last thing we're going to hit on is how, as coaches, we can encourage our players to stay motivated, to stay in the game when things aren't going great, when we're down early in the game, maybe when we're getting blown out. I'm going to share 8 examples of comments, messages that we could share with our team to increase the likelihood that our team will continue to play hard, finish the game strong, not give up, not quit. I'm excited to share those with you today. Next week, I'm going to share an off-season / preseason arm care checklist. So I've been surprised over the last few years how many emails have come my way from you great coaches, those of you that really want to be a positive part and have a positive impact on the youth coaching community, the youth baseball community, with your family, your players. And it has been really cool to get so many emails saying, yes, there's a lot of learning going on. Their coaching game is going up. Listening to this podcast is elevating the coaching game. But 2 other things that have really stood out and have been a pleasant surprise. When I started this podcast 4+ years ago, I just wanted to give back. I wanted to have a podcast that filled a lot of voids that I saw in the youth baseball community and the baseball community by and large. And while I started it with that goal of helping coaches that are going out there trying to do their best, but are busy with their day jobs, but can handle these concepts, that can handle some advanced mentoring. And that was my single focus. I didn't go in with any ideas of where it might go. The feedback has been wonderful, and I believe this podcast has come a long way. And for those of you that have listened to some of those early episodes who have been with us since the beginning, I'm pretty sure you'd agree. I believe the content has always been solid, but the quality of the podcast overall has improved a lot. At least that's been my hope. I'm always trying to get better. And I think that's what's helped me as a coach, is always looking to get better. And I respect the heck out of all of you that are tuning in each week so you can be better. And speaking of being better, one of the big surprises has been a message of thanks for helping a lot of the listeners be better dads, moms, better parents, saying that they're a better person listening to this podcast. That pumps me up. Now, I don't have it all figured out, but I think a lot of the things we talk about on here are very applicable to many facets of our life: parenting, business, work, and definitely coaching. And one more message that I've received, usually via email over the past few years from listeners, is them looking forward to this podcast episode coming out each week, and they can relate to where I'm coming from. I feel like we're relating to each other. And I know exactly how that feels because I have a couple podcasts, non-baseball podcasts, but I have a couple podcasts that I listen to that I get that same feeling listening to those, those hosts of those podcasts. So that's been really cool to hear that kind of connection, even though we're not meeting face to face. Most of you I've never met. Hopefully I'll meet some of you, if not a lot of you, in the near future. If you're ever in the Boise area, let me know. And so that has been really cool. And that pumps me up each week to come out with something that I know is relatable and is enjoyable on many levels. And now, before we dive into a few awards that I want to throw out there as recommendations for us to use as coaches with our players, these aren't end of year awards, which are very common, end of season awards, but these are every practice type of awards. We are going to focus on the practice awards more than the game awards because, hey, kids find it easier to get pumped up for games, but we want them to be motivated to be great practice players. So I'll dive into that in just a second, but I want to hit on something that got me thinking about all of you, and that's the 80-20 rule, the 80-20 principle. So as I've mentioned, I'm here in Boise, and of course, anybody who's been paying attention to trends across the United States, Boise in the Idaho area has had a huge influx of folks like myself coming from the Washington area, a lot from Oregon, and definitely a lot from California, among other places. We have a few neighbors from the East Coast, New Jersey, Georgia, a couple from Texas, quite a few from Minnesota. So 80-20 principle, 80-20 rule hit me. There's a lot of talk in our neighborhood. Like I said, a lot of people coming from places that don't have really a lot of snow. Washington has a lot of rain, not much snow. Mostly rain, not as much snow. Oregon has snow, but a lot of the folks are coming from, the Portland area, which doesn't get a lot of snow. But definitely those California drivers. A lot of Californians moving here. And so driving in the winter, driving on snow, right? There's a lot of talk about, how to do it. And you can tell the local native drivers versus the California drivers. And you can tell who's who by who's in the ditch and who's not in the ditch on a snowy, icy day. And it got me thinking. I was talking to a neighbor who's lived here his whole life. And I said, hey, what are the three things? What are the three things that I need to know to be a better snow and winter driver? What are the three things? I see these lists of 7, 8, 9, 10 things you can do to be a better winter driver, things we should do. This long checklist. I said, what are the three things that are going to save me from 98% of the potential accidents or times that I'm going to slide off the road? And one of my neighbors laid it out really clear. He said, all-wheel drive, good snow tires, and drive slow. He said, that's it. He said, if you have all-wheel drive and your tires aren't bald, you're not rolling out there with street slicks, and you drive slower according to the road conditions, he said, you almost never have an issue that you create at least. That doesn't mean somebody might not slide into you. So there's a lot of things that I've been told over the years when it comes to snow driving, winter driving. But I wanted to ask somebody who's grown up in this, somebody who's 50 years old, whole life here in the area. And so it got me thinking, as coaches, as parents, just in general with our businesses, our jobs, what are the three things? What are the five things that we need to be really focused on? Another 80-20 thing that popped up recently. I was talking to my wife about a Super Bowl party or hosting a Super Bowl get together. And I said, let's just nail the 20%, the 80-20. What's the 80-20 of a Super Bowl party? You got to have food. And you could break that into apps, a meal, and dessert, right? You got to have food, apps, meal, dessert. You got to have drinks. You got to have seats. And then there's something that I think could slide into that top category of importance, and that's having the game volume set loud enough, but not too loud. So food, drinks, seats for everyone, preferably comfortable. You can see where this 80-20 is everywhere. And that doesn't mean you don't hit some of the details and maybe have a fun game to play or some Super Bowl squares that you do or things like that. Definitely not a bad idea. You could even have some music ready to rock when the game's over, because after the game's over, people are still hanging around. There's a little bit of a lull, especially if it's a good game. You might want to have some music ready to go, a little upbeat music. Even if your guests are only staying for another 20 or 30 minutes, it's not a bad idea to have something racked up and ready to go. You could have halftime cornhole games going on, but you got to nail the 80-20 well enough. So practice awards. And as always, full transparency. This idea was not mine. Now, I can't recall exactly off the top of my head where I got this from, this tip about giving practice awards, and we're going to dive into it right here. The idea and strategy behind using practice awards, recognizing players for having great practices in specific areas. And so recently, again, I can't recall exactly where, but I heard about this award being used by a team. And if this is one of you listeners, reach out, email me to say, hey, Coach Bud, that was me. I tried to search through my emails, couldn't find anything. I always like to give credit where credit is due. Full transparency, always. So the award is a practice award called the Golden Hammer Trophy, the Golden Hammer Award. So you take a hammer, spray paint it gold. This could be done for $15. And at the end of each practice, you could give out one for the player that hustles the most. And you hand it out at the end of practice. And they get to keep it. They get to take it home. Now, they got to bring it back at the next practice, but they get to take it home. They get recognized at the end of practice for being the Golden Hammer Trophy recipient for hustle. Now, the category that you choose could vary. There could be one that you give out for being a great teammate. Somebody who's picking up their teammate. That could be complimenting their teammate when they're struggling. And not a phony compliment, not phony support, but genuinely caring about their teammates. It could be grabbing the equipment for them, looking to help out their teammates. So you could have a Golden Hammer Trophy Award given out at the end of practice for the player who hustled the most and for the player that was the best teammate. I recommend taking a picture with the player and the coaching staff, having the player holding that golden hammer. For the golden hammer trophy, use that for hustle because hammer, hard work, the symbolism is there for that. For being a great teammate, you could find another type of trophy that you could just find online and order and have, or you could have somebody create some kind of trophy or hardware that illustrates or encapsulates being a great teammate. That would be something cool for them to have, like a big hammer that's spray painted metallic gold, sparkly gold. That's pretty cool. So I wanted to throw these ideas out for practice awards. The Golden Hammer Trophy. I'm trying to figure out where I got that. I read about this recently. It wasn't my idea, but I loved it. Buy yourself one of those oversized hammers, spray painted gold. You could even write their names on it once they win the award. So you could have all the recipients' names on it, or you keep it clean and then they just take it home and they get to keep it, but you really recognize them. And the biggest thing isn't so much the trophy itself and how pretty it looks or how cool it is. Although if you can be creative and make it something that the kids are excited to have or take home, that can elevate the importance of the award and the significance for your players. But the recognition and the idea that you are recognizing and you are looking to give this award out, these awards out to players at the end of practice, it solidifies, or at least it helps to solidify, a message to our players that we are on the lookout for hustle and players that are great teammates. There are other categories you can get into. Here's the thing. Be careful. Just like when we're trying to create rules, be very careful coming up with too many, biting off more than we can chew. In fact, I could have shared out at least 3 more ideas or reasons to give out a trophy, but we're going to be coaching a practice. We're already doing a lot of other things. We're running drills. So adding a bunch of rubrics that we're using to assess and evaluate players on all these different awards, I don't recommend that. You could have different awards each month. Say, hey, this month is the Golden Hammer Trophy Award month. Next month is the Golden Heart Great Teammate Trophy Award month. You could do it that way and spread it out. So you're still sending the message that there's more than just one thing that's important to being a great baseball player and a great person. There's more than one thing that we can highlight. You could do it different ways. You could just do 2 awards throughout the season at every practice. You could also give the award out at the end of the month. But if you do it at the end of the month, you're very likely not going to be able to give the award to everybody. And I'm okay with that, but just keep that in mind. Not everybody needs a trophy. And I think not winning a trophy or not earning a trophy or not getting that reward can help teach our players how to respond in a situation where they're not the one being recognized. So Practice Player of the Day awards. You could do Practice Player of the Month awards. Now, I've done the Practice Player of the Day awards, hustle and great teammate, but there's definitely some other ways to do this. What I wanted to do was get the ball rolling in your mind that this is something that can be very useful, very helpful in recognizing great behavior, great character, to recognize the things we want our players to exemplify, to show. Hustle, being a great person, a great teammate. You could have 4 awards or 5 awards, 5 different awards or 4 different awards that you give out each month. So you could do hustle, you could do great teammate, you can do the player that is shown to understand and know the game the best, somebody who's paying attention and learning the game the best, somebody who's learning how to play the game of baseball, like knowing where to go with the ball. Get creative with an award for that. Another great award idea is the Coachability Award, the player that's the most coachable for that month. So you could do it that way, and then you wouldn't have to take time at the end of each practice. So there's different ways to do this. And for newer coaches, sometimes giving the award out at the end of the month, allocating 15 minutes for these 4 or 5 awards is the best way to do it rather than trying to script it into each week of practice. So you got to go with what you feel comfortable with. But having these little cool awards like the Golden Hammer or the Golden Heart or the Coachability Award, I think you got to give it a cool name like the Golden Hammer, the Golden Heart. Come up with a cool name. Try to get a cool, simple trophy that you can give to them. Even a t-shirt would be cool. Having a t-shirt. Now, if you're going to give a t-shirt out, I recommend that you let them keep the t-shirt. So I just wanted to give you some ideas on how we can recognize players without biting off more than we can chew. We're already busy as coaches doing a lot of things. All right. So the next thing I want to talk about is a professional baseball player who played 7 years of professional baseball, probably 12 years of amateur, youth baseball, You're talking almost 20 years of baseball and never knew what their hot zone was, according to them. So this is an article. It's from the magazine, The Inside Pitch. It's a really good magazine sent out by the ABCA, American Baseball Coaches Association. And this article by Adam Revelette. Adam wrote this article about Kevin Davidson. And Kevin Davidson, I don't know Kevin, but he's gone into the analytics world and data world of baseball. And he's the CEO of DS Sports Ventures, a software and technology-based company. But what I wanted to talk about was how he was a minor league player of the year back in 2003 for the Astros, played all the way up to the AAA level. And something that stood out the most was a comment that, and I want to be very clear, as we discuss this mistake that had been made, it's not the player's fault. So I wouldn't blame Kevin Davidson for this. I would blame the baseball coaching community as a whole for missing this. And I don't expect, or I wouldn't expect the entire coaching community to be on point with what we're going to dive into here. But a lot of coaches, organizations, programs let the players down. So I'm definitely not blaming Kevin for what we're going to get into here. I would say it was a failure on the coaching side. So with that said, in the article, Kevin said, quote, "I played 7 years of professional baseball and I have no idea where my hot zones were," end quote. So the hot zones, for those of you that aren't too familiar with that, the hot zone is referring to the area of the strike zone, or just the area where the pitches pass through, the area, the zone in which the pitches pass through, that hitter hits the best. So if the zone, for example, if you look at a hot zone image or illustration and you see red, dark red, that means they hammer pitches in that area. They are the most productive on pitches in that area. And then it usually fades to orange, to yellow, and out from there in terms of how well they hit those pitches. Hot zones have been around forever, but the idea that this is somebody who played baseball for probably 20 years when you add it all up and didn't have an idea, had no idea where their hot zones were. I've been talking about that for a long time on this podcast, the hitting approach, the 80-20 baseball hitting approach, pitch selection approach. Hitters, the first thing hitters need to learn, in my opinion, that we need to teach them, unless their swing is just atrocious, unless it's so bad they can't even hit the ball sitting on a tee, they just miss the ball on a tee completely 5 times in a row, okay, then you probably got to dial in that swing a little bit. But for 90+% of our hitters at the youth level, we need to get them first and foremost great at knowing what pitches to swing at and what pitches not to swing at. They need to know what their hot zones are. And it's not something they're going to have a lot of time to think about up there. And that's why you got to coach it up and coach it up and coach it up. And that's why we talk about it a lot on this podcast. The fastest way and the best way, the most consistent way to hit the ball well is to swing at good pitches. The fastest way to be a better hitter is to start swinging at better pitches. The thing we need to coach up the most is teaching our players what pitches to swing at. What are their hot zones? With less than 2 strikes, they need to know what their hot zones are. With 2 strikes, they need to know the strike zone. Not the strike zone defined by the rule book, but the strike zone defined by the umpire behind home plate that day. And I'd be cautious to overcoach the variations in strike zones. That can really add a confusion and hesitation at the plate. But there's a typical youth baseball strike zone, typically a little below the knees, definitely outside. That outside corner gets expanded. And we need to coach our players up on this and coach them up and coach them up. I've talked at length about not overcoaching. This is something that should be coached almost every pitch for the youth level. And all it is good take, good pitch to swing at. So if they swing at a pitch in batting practice or in a scrimmage and they don't hit it well, or even in the game and they don't hit it well, but they swung at the right pitch, say, hey, great pitch to swing at. So you reinforce it with them continuously. You want them to know their hot zone, not by some chart, some software on a computer. They need to feel out their hot zone. They need to be able to feel it out. They need to be able to see the pitch come out of the hand and go, yes, with good certainty that pitch is coming through their hot zone, the area in which they can drive the ball, hit line drives, versus swinging at pitchers, strikes, or pitches that are nowhere near the zone or in the dirt. So it made me think, here's a guy who was a minor league player of the year, played college ball, said he played 7 years of professional baseball, 7 years, all day long, baseball, talking about baseball, and he's saying he had no idea where his hot zones were. That's a big problem. So the good news is, you're all checking in here. We're talking about this. This is huge. So unless your player can't hit the ball on a tee, 1 out of 5 swings, let's get to coaching up the pitches they swing at. You got to be on time, but I think that's something that's a little easier to coach up, right? The timing and when they go, when they start their swing, when they are ready to go. I think that's something that can be coached up faster, and then pitch selection and go from there. So interesting to hear that comment from a hitter who played at a high level and was very successful. Just think about how much more successful he would have been had he been coached up on his hot zones, pitch selection. So keep that top of mind as you go out there and coach up your hitters. All right, we're going to finish strong here with messages that we can share to encourage our players when there's still a lot of game remaining, or when the game's not going well, or when we're getting blown out, or when we're down early in the game. Here are 7 things we could say. You can take these and change it to fit your messaging and how you say things. But I wanted to get this in our minds as something to go to. Now, some of these aren't the perfect thing to say for all teams at all times, but it'll get you going in the right way, and you got to feel it out. But I think as a coach, it's good to say something, but not oversell it and beg players to stay in the game, but to have some things we can share with them that can help them stay engaged and in the game. All right, here we go. Number 1, we've got plenty of time to turn this around. Keep fighting. Number 2, don't give up yet. We can come back from this if we stick together. Number 3, the game is far from over. Keep believing and good things will happen. Number 4, hey, there are a lot of innings left. Keep your heads up and let's keep battling. Number 5, this game is a marathon, not a sprint. Keep grinding and we'll get where we need to get to. Number 6, we've been in tougher spots before. Stay focused and take it one play at a time. Number 7, the scoreboard doesn't tell the whole story. We're better than this and we'll start playing like it. And the last one on the list here, I still believe in this team. The coaches still believe in this team. We've got what it takes to turn this game around. So those are some quotes. I know they're a little rah-rah, and I'm not really a big rah-rah message coach, but having a couple of these, that kind of idea of basically like, hey, there's still game left, giving them a sense of hope is good. If the players have a sense of hope, they can run with that. So we really want to give them a message of hope. And that hope is not some kind of flowery message. It really is valuable. Hope is really that initial ingredient that we have to have, right? At least some morsel of hope to drive forward and to really, hey, now we can turn it on. Now we can get going. A little bit of hope or a lot of hope can really move things and get things going forward and can really help us take our foot off the brake and put it on the gas. So message of hope. Hey, we got plenty of time to turn this around. Game is a marathon, not a sprint. Hey, we've been in tougher spots before. Hey, there are a lot of innings left. Hey, the game's far from over. Hey, we can come back if we stick together. Hey, the scoreboard doesn't tell the whole story. We're better than this. I still believe in this team. The coaching staff, we still believe in you guys. We've got what it takes to turn this around. Now, I wouldn't oversell it. I wouldn't overdo it. I wouldn't make any guarantees either. Like, if we do this, we will win. But that sense of hope, you're really just trying to give them a sense of hope. Not perfect answers or guarantees of success, but that message of hope when things aren't going well in the game. All right, coaches, love being here with all of you. Next week, I'm going to share with you my off-season/preseason arm care checklist, the Big 4. So I'll share that with you all next week. If you wouldn't mind, leave a review, a rating for the podcast. It really helps out. Share it with another coach that you know. Share it with a friend of yours. If you just send it off and say, give this a listen, it's been helpful. And especially this time of year with the baseball season in the not too distant future. So sharing out the podcast is a great way to help support it. I don't run advertisements on here. I'm just trying to give you helpful content and really trying to help everybody in an efficient way. So appreciate you all. I look forward to being back here next week with everybody, coming out every Tuesday with a new episode. And until then, let's take care of ourselves, our health, our families, our close friends, and let's take this information out there to the field, out there to the training environment, and keep doing what we're doing, becoming better coaches, one day and one practice at a time. Until next week, adios.
This has been the 80-20 Baseball Masterclass. Take it to the field.